Lapras is coming to Pokemon Unite very, very soon, and here is everything you need to know about this Pokemon before you get your grubby mitts on it. And why are your mitts so grubby? Clean your hands, Pokemon Unite community. Lapras is going to be our newest defender coming to Pokemon Unite. It is a ranged defender. Its boosted basic attack will recover HP, so it kind of feels like Goodra, but at range a little bit, where you're going to be recovering tons of HP with this Pokemon, specifically with its boosteds. Its interesting passive, Shell Armor, if you take damage from a single attack that exceeds a certain set percentage, we won't know what this is until the math chord starts to break down these numbers, the damage will be reduced. So in theory, taking damage from things like Talonflame's Fly or a Unite move or things like that will actually be reduced on Lapras. Lapras starts out with the choice between Whirlpool and Ice Shard for its beginning moves. Whirlpool is an area damage around you that actually does more damage more quickly when you are using it and an enemy is in the outer ring of it. So as you can see, if you're near them, the ticks go about that fast. And then here, when you're further away from them, the ticks are much quicker. As you can see, you want to keep enemies further and further away from you, but that means that you can chase an enemy down with Whirlpool, and if they try to run from you, you're actually hurting them more. Your next move is Ice Shard. It will stun an enemy briefly, freezing them and push them if they are already stunned. It's a cool little move here, and pairing it up with your Whirlpool, it's going to be really easy for a Pokemon like Lapras to stop enemy Pokemon from stacking. Your big boosted attack here does go through enemies. It'll hit multiple enemies, and again, it heals you as you hit that big boosted attack. One of the big positives of a Pokemon like this is Lapras does not evolve, so you don't get level gated at any point with this Pokemon. You can just continue gaining experience. At level 5, you get your first move, either Water Pulse or Perish Song. Let's talk about Water Pulse. Another area attack, Water Pulse not only will hit enemies around you, it will begin to hit more and more enemies around you as you hit enemies with it. So as you can see, I hit with Water Pulse and you see a counter here at the bottom of the screen, and I can open it. Water Pulse. An increased number of pulses will be released the next time this move is used, and as you can see, that is the case. Up to 3 times until you get its plus, and then it will be up to 4 water pulses depending on the enemy's hit. It doesn't matter if you hit a wild Pokemon or you hit an enemy Pokemon, you will get the extra water pulses from doing so. You'll notice that the first water pulse does the most damage, and then it does half damage from there. So the first one does end up doing the most damage, and then from there you get less and less damage from your water pulse, but it's still a lot of damage to enemies around you. It also does this, which is amazing. After you use Water Pulse and hit an enemy, you have to hit an enemy with it, you get your boosted attack. And again, your boosted attack heals you with Lapras. This is a fluid combo that you're going to be using. It's on, hey, it's a water Pokemon, a fluid combo. So you're going to be hitting with Water Pulse, and then you're going to be using your boosted, continuing to fight, following them, hitting with Water Pulse, using your boosted, on and on and on. Something to notice when charging up your Water Pulse stacks, if you will. If you hit an enemy but not with the first pulse of Water Pulse, you do not get the stack recovered. If you hit them with the first pulse, you do. So if you move out, hit them with that, you can see your Water Pulse did not get reset right there. You have to hit them with the first Water Pulse that you cast, otherwise you will lose the amount of Water Pulse stacks, or however you like to look at it, that you have, the stored amount of Water Pulses. So you have to hit them with the first pulse. This is also the case for its boosted attack. So your boosted attack is only triggered if you hit with that first Water Pulse. If you do, you get that free boosted basic attack, which again is what Lapras is all about with this combo. At level 11, you get Water Pulse Plus, which will just give you an increased amount of Water Pulse plussing, and you'll just hit more times with your Water Pulse right there, which is awesome. It's just more and more damage to enemies. Basically, being around you is a real hazard. Lapras' next move choice is either Bubble Beam or Ice Beam. Bubble Beam fires out in a direction like this, and it will stop the enemy here for a sec and stun them, as long as Blastoise stops stunning me right here. There you go, and you can see them get pushed up into that bubble. There are also bubbles that pop up around the area where you cast this. Those bubbles will pick up other enemies and put them up into the air and stun them for a moment. Something to note, only the damage is where the beam is actually shot out. The bubbles don't do damage, they just stun your opponents. But the stun can actually be pretty amazing, especially if you send that into a whole crowd of enemies and all of them get stunned just for a second here, and all you have to do is just cast a bubble. It's pretty nice. You can also, of course, use this to chase opponents down. down with your Water Pulse or with your Perish Song. So it's a nice little combo there. Bubble Beam also gives you a little shield here. It's a little tough to see. I'm going to let my health get a little bit lower here, and then when I cast this, that little white area is the shield around me that I get from using Bubble Beam. That shield gets bigger when you get Bubble Beam Plus at level 13. Next, let's talk about Perish Song. Perish Song does damage to enemies around you, a lot like Water Pulse actually, and as you cast it, you can see this little bar get put near the enemy's HP right there, and what that is sort of your execute threshold. If you do a bit of damage with Perish Song, your third bit of damage with it, and the enemy is below that threshold right there, they will be instantly KO'd. Now, it's a little tough to do, however, when it does happen, it is extremely satisfying. To have an execute move as just a regular move inside Pokemon Unite is pretty amazing. Something to notice with Perish Song is it actually does more damage when you hit all 3 of your attacks with it. You get an extra burst of damage with Perish Song. Perish Song does not do as much damage as Water Pulse does, but it has the ability to execute and it has that extra pop of damage at the end. Another thing to notice about Perish Song is it does not give you a boosted attack after you use it. So Water Pulse Plus will be much better for brawling early than something like Perish Song. However, Perish Song can pick up some really mean KOs, and I honestly think it will scare your opponents just to see that little bar on their HP. They're going to think, oh, I have to run away or I'm going to get KO'd. Now, Perish Song doesn't give you a boosted attack, but interestingly enough, Perish Song Plus does, and this is huge. So, just like Water Pulse now, when you use your Perish Song, you get a boosted. In fact, you don't even have to hit anything to get your boosted with this, and you are able to start using boosted attacks. At the Plus move, I think Perish Song is insane, basically. You are just able to trigger boosted attacks all the time. Because of that, Perish Song might be an even better move late game than you would expect, given that you're not only, of course, setting up these moments where you can KO your enemies, you're also constantly getting boosted attacks. That way you can keep recovering your health. It's going to be pretty amazing. If you decide not to go with Bubble Beam, you have Ice Beam. Ice Beam also firing out in a line right here, and it creates an area where Lapras moves a little bit faster on top of it, and at the same time, it does damage over time to your opponents and possibly freezes them if they stay inside of it too long. We'll try it on this substitute doll here. You can see if they stand in it, they take damage over time and they become frozen. Their move speed is also reduced, and then mine is increased, so I'm able to chase opponents down a little bit easier. Bubble Beam would stun them, so you can chase them down easier. This would slow them, so you can chase them down easier. Also, ostensibly, you could hit multiple enemies on the enemy team with this Ice Beam because they could all be in this taking a ton of damage. Ice Beam Plus, very similar to Ice Beam, but Pokemon are frozen for a longer time inside the Ice Beam once they get frozen. It's honestly hard to say what's going to be a more popular choice, as both moves are really cool on each side. I like all of them for different reasons, and it's just going to be personal preference once you're inside of a match. However, Perish Song is going to have a lot of believers, because if you are able to get a KO using it, especially on some of these bulkier Pokemon that are trying to heal themselves, you're going to be pretty happy that you have Perish Song. Lapras's Unite move is really something special. You run around the map, and you can bump into objects and things like this. You can also hit wild Pokemon, which is something we'll talk about. Once you hit an enemy Pokemon, however, you will stop cruising around the map, and you will knock them up into the air. You also can use this move again before you run into something to cast a huge wave in front of you and knock enemies up. This is primarily going to be how you use this. Again, you can run into wild Pokemon and you do not stop your move, but the second you run into enemy Pokemon, your move stops and you knock them up into the air. You can hit obstacles, you can hit wild Pokemon, just not enemy player Pokemon. At that point, your Unite move stops. Instead of that, what you want to do is you want to hit your button again and throw a huge wave at your enemies like that, knocking them and anyone around them up into the air. Something to notice, when you hit wild Pokemon, it looks like you can only hit them one time, so you can't just spin around them and hit them a whole bunch with your Unite move. I have tried. It looks like you can just hit them once. I'm not sure what the cooldown of it is, but it looks like it's just your entire Unite move. You get one big hit onto an enemy as you barrel through them, onto a wild Pokemon, excuse me, as you barrel through them. Another interesting thing about Lapras's Unite move is it is not affected by these speed flux zones right here. So you can travel all the way through the enemy base really completely unencumbered by their speed flux zone. And then when you're ready, you can cast your big old tsunami right there, which is going to be awesome. I mean, you're going to see some of the coolest plays with this. Also, of course, not something I could show in the practice mode, you are able to pick up an ally and carry them around the map. This can be an ally like Cramorant as well, or Decidueye. While they are in their Unite move, you can run them around the map using your Unite. It's going to be pretty wild. As far as items are concerned, I think a Slick Spoon, Shell Bell, Focus Band could all be really good things. We're going to know more about items once we understand this Pokemon's actual scaling, and it's very possible that you'll get a lot out of stacking on this Pokemon. It's also very possible that things like Muscle Band or Rapid Fire Scarf could be quite useful. It didn't seem to increase the attack speed enough, but then again, we don't have actual numbers yet, so this is just a pretty safe build that I've been running for this Pokemon. As far as emblems are concerned, you can take a look at my Boost Emblems video to see a much better representation of this, but something like 6 green, 6 white makes a lot of sense for a defender like this. At the same time, you might be running 7 black, 6 green if cooldowns are very, very important to you. I think one thing Lapras will struggle with a bit is securing some wild Pokemon from the enemies. It doesn't have the same kind of burst that you get, out of a Slowbro or something like that. So I think you're going to need to use a combination of kind of all your moves in sync to make sure you can get something from your opponents here. That nice boosted attack just healing me up. Ooh. The ice is nice too. The nice little push there. I like that early in path. Ice Shard might be really nice for stacking just because you can freeze your opponents for a moment. So you set up, opportunities where they're going to be frozen and you can use that to score. And stacking usually works well on Pokemon like this, similar to a Blastoise or a lot of supporters that have low normal stats but actually scale well. Again, we won't know the actual scaling for this Pokemon until we really get it into some games and the math cord gets to figure that out. Here, I'm going to use my Unite move and try to grab this Charmeleon right here. I slide past him. Come here, buddy. Get over here. No! Come back. Why, Charmeleon? Why? There we go. And I could take him for a little bit of a ride with me. And again, you can pick someone up like Cramorant when they're in their Unite move, so there are some really cool things that you can do with this move. Also, you are able to bounce off just the same way someone bounces off using Comfey, in case you're picked up by a Lapras and you don't want to take that ride. I'm carrying this Venusaur around and it's solar beaming. Holy, it's so fun. Oh man, this Unite's gonna be so fun. I didn't even think about something like that. Oh, you could carry them around. They're just firing off solar beams. Let's freaking go. All in all, I'm very excited for Lapras coming to Pokemon Unite. I can't wait to see what ends up being the, most exciting build for this. I think a lot of people are going to like Perish Song, but I think there's just so much cool stuff going on with this Pokemon. Let me know what your favorite thing you saw today here was in the comments. I love you all. Jake, your resident content cowboy, saying yeehaw.